Do you feel like you're carrying a weight of guilt and self-criticism that's keeping you from truly living? Like no matter what you do, you're never quite good enough. I understand that pain, and I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be this way. In this video, you're going to discover the hidden power of self-forgiveness and how it can unlock your true potential. You'll learn practical tools to release the chains of the past and step into a life of freedom, love, and limitless possibilities. And there's a special moment coming where you'll have the chance to join our community and deepen this transformative journey together. Louise Hay taught us that we are worthy of love and compassion, especially from ourselves. And today, you're going to feel that truth in your heart. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and stay with me. By the end of this video, you'll have a new perspective and a powerful practice that will change everything. Let's begin this beautiful journey of self-discovery and healing together. The weight you carry. Have you ever noticed how your inner voice can be the cruelest of all? That voice that whispers, "You're not good enough," that you should have done things differently, that carries every mistake like a heavy stone in your chest. This is the prison of self-criticism, and so many hearts live trapped in it, believing they deserve this punishment. But the truth is, that voice isn't who you really are. It's just an echo of old beliefs, of moments when someone said you weren't enough, and you believed them. According to Louise Hay, self-criticism is like a slow poison that prevents our soul from flourishing. When we constantly criticize ourselves, we're telling the universe that we don't deserve love, prosperity, or happiness. And the universe always responds to what we believe about ourselves. Guilt is another heavy chain that many carry. Perhaps you've hurt someone, made a decision that didn't work out, or simply didn't live up to the expectations placed upon you. And now, years later, that guilt is still there, stealing your peace, preventing you from moving forward. Louise Hay used to say that carrying guilt is like dragging a weight that no longer belongs to us. The past has already happened, and no matter how much you punish yourself, it won't change. What can change is how you relate to it. You can choose to learn, to grow, and above all, to forgive yourself. I release the past with love and choose to live in the present. Think about Sarah, a woman who spent years blaming herself for not being the perfect mother. She worked long hours, missed school presentations, and felt like she was failing her children. Even after they grew up and became happy, fulfilled adults, Sarah still carried that guilt like an open wound. She couldn't see that she did the best she could with the resources she had at the time. Self-criticism kept her trapped in a past that her own children had already forgiven. How many of us are like Sarah, punishing ourselves for something that's been forgiven by everyone except ourselves? Self-criticism and guilt create a vicious cycle. The more you criticize yourself, the worse you feel about yourself. And the worse you feel, the more you believe you deserve that criticism. It's like being trapped in a hall of distorted mirrors, where each reflection shows only your flaws and never your light. Louise Hay reminds us that we are beings worthy of love and compassion, especially from ourselves. When we begin to treat ourselves with the same kindness we offer a dear friend, everything begins to change. The prison opens, and for the first time, you see the door to freedom. But how do you escape this prison? How do you silence that cruel voice that seems so real, so true? The first step is recognizing that you're trapped, realizing that self-criticism isn't protecting you or making you better, it's just keeping you small, afraid to shine. Louise Hay teaches us that awareness is the beginning of healing. When you become aware of the thought patterns that imprison you, you gain the power to change them. I am worthy of love and acceptance exactly as I am. And this change is the portal to discovering your true potential. something we'll explore more deeply. The golden key, self-forgiveness, isn't an act of weakness. It's one of the most courageous gestures you can make for yourself. Many people believe that forgiving yourself means excusing what you did wrong, as if you're saying it's okay to have hurt someone or made a mistake. But Louise Hay teaches us that self-forgiveness is actually an act of profound self-love. It's recognizing your humanity, accepting that you did the best you could in that moment with the awareness and resources you had. When you forgive yourself, you're not erasing the past, you're freeing yourself from it. You're telling your heart that you deserve peace, that you deserve to move forward without carrying yesterday's weight on your back. Think of self-forgiveness as a golden key that opens the door to your emotional prison. Without that key, you can spend your entire life banging on the bars, screaming for freedom, but never actually getting out. Louise Hay used to say that forgiveness is the path to healing, and self-forgiveness is where it all begins. When you forgive yourself, you're telling the universe that you're ready to receive love, abundance, and all the blessings life has to offer. I forgive myself completely and free myself to live fully. This affirmation isn't just words, it's a declaration of intention, a commitment to your own happiness and well-being. Let me tell you about Michael, a man who carried for decades the guilt of having abandoned his dreams to follow the path his family expected of him. He became a successful lawyer, but inside he felt an immense emptiness. Michael blamed himself for not having the courage to follow his heart, for having wasted years doing something that didn't fulfill him. It was only when he discovered Louise Hay's teachings that he began to understand that forgiving himself didn't mean giving up on his dreams, but rather accepting his past choices with compassion. He realized there was still time to honor his truth, and by forgiving himself, he found the courage to make real changes in his life. Today, Michael teaches art to children and finally feels like he's living with purpose. Self-forgiveness also has a transformative power over your physical and emotional health. Louise Hay always spoke about the connection between mind and body and how guilt and resentment can manifest as illness and pain. When you forgive yourself, you're releasing emotional toxins that were trapped in your body, allowing vital energy to flow freely again. You may notice that chronic pains diminish, that your energy increases, that you sleep better. Self-forgiveness is a powerful medicine that heals from the inside out. I deserve health, love, and happiness in all aspects of my life. But how do you practice self-forgiveness genuinely? It's not just saying the words, it's feeling the truth of them in your heart. Louise Hay invites us to look at ourselves with the eyes of compassion, to treat ourselves as we would treat a frightened child who needs comfort. Start by acknowledging what you need to forgive in yourself. Be specific. Then, place your hand on your heart and say out loud, I forgive you. You did the best you could. I love and accept you completely. Repeat this as many times as necessary until the tears come, until you feel relief, a lightness, and know that this is just the beginning of an incredible journey of self-discovery and transformation that will reveal who you truly are. If this message is touching your heart, if you're feeling like you've finally found a path to freedom, I'd love for you to join this community of souls in transformation. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like so more people can find this light, and share this video with someone you know needs to hear this. And tell me in the comments what resonated most with you about the liberating power of self-forgiveness. Your voice matters, and I'm here to walk with you on this journey of self-love. The child within each of us lives, a child, that small, vulnerable version we once were. This inner child carries all the memories, the joys, but also the wounds we experienced throughout life. Louise Hay teaches us that many of the difficulties we face in adult life have roots in childhood experiences. Perhaps you heard that you weren't good enough, that you should be different, or that your emotions were too much. These messages became engraved in that child's heart, and even now, years later, they still influence how you see yourself and how you relate to the world. The inner child is waiting for you to come back and embrace her with all the love she always deserved. Often, when we criticize or punish ourselves, we're repeating patterns we learned in childhood. If you were criticized by your parents, teachers, or caregivers, it's natural that you internalized that critical voice and now use it against yourself. Louise Hay used to say that healing begins when we recognize that wounded child still needs care, validation, unconditional love. You can't change what happened in the past, but you can change how you care for that child now. I embrace my inner child with love and compassion, healing all wounds from the past. This affirmation is a balm for the soul, a reminder that you have the power to be the loving mother or father your inner child always needed. Let me share the story of Emma, a woman who always felt invisible. In childhood, Emma was the middle child, and she felt she never received the attention her siblings got. She learned to stay quiet, not to ask for what she needed, to believe her needs weren't important. In adult life, Emma had difficulty setting boundaries, asking for help, believing she deserved to be seen and heard. It was through inner child work, inspired by Louise Hay's teachings, that Emma began to understand that little girl was still inside her, waiting to be acknowledged. Emma began talking to her inner child, asking what she needed, offering the love and attention that were missing. And gradually, Emma began to feel more whole, more present, more deserving. Wounds from the past don't disappear on their own. They need to be acknowledged, felt, and healed with love. Louise Hay invites us to do reconnection work with our inner child, to look at those painful memories not with shame, but with compassion. When you understand that child did the best she could to survive, that she developed protective mechanisms that were necessary at the time, you can begin to release those patterns that no longer serve you. You can tell your inner child, "You're safe now. I'm here to take care of you. You are loved exactly as you are. I am worthy of love, care, and attention at all times." Healing the inner child is one of the deepest steps on the path of self-forgiveness. Because when you understand where your wounds come from, when you see it wasn't your fault, that you were just a child trying to understand a confusing world, forgiveness flows naturally. You realize you deserve compassion, not criticism, that you deserve love, not punishment, and this understanding opens space for true transformation. So you can finally release the patterns that keep you trapped and embrace the freedom to be who you truly are. And this freedom is what allows us to let go of something very powerful. Letting go of perfect. The pursuit of perfection is one of the most subtle and destructive traps we can fall into. Have you ever caught yourself postponing a project because it wasn't perfect, or harshly criticizing yourself for a small mistake? Perfection is an illusion, an impossible standard that keeps us trapped in a cycle of never being good enough. Louise Hay teaches us that perfection doesn't exist, and that seeking it is a form of self-punishment disguised as excellence. When you cling to perfection, you're telling yourself that you only deserve love, acceptance, and success if you're flawless. But the truth is, you're already worthy, exactly as you are, with all your imperfections and humanity. I accept myself completely, with all my imperfections and unique beauty. Perfectionism often stems from a deep wound, from a belief that we need to prove our worth. Perhaps in childhood you learned that love was conditional, that you only received approval when you did everything right, or perhaps you were criticized so harshly that you developed the belief that any mistake is unacceptable. Louise Hay used to say that perfectionism is a form of fear of not being loved, fear of being rejected, fear of not being enough. And this fear keeps you small, prevents you from taking risks, from creating, from living fully. When you let go of perfection, you're freeing yourself from that fear and opening space for authenticity, for creativity, for the joy of simply being. Meet the story of David, an artist who dreamed of exhibiting his paintings but never felt ready. He would spend months on a single canvas, adjusting every detail, but was never satisfied. David was so afraid his work wouldn't be perfect that he ended up not sharing anything with the world. He lived frustrated, feeling like he was wasting his talent, but couldn't free himself from the need for everything to be flawless. It was upon discovering Louise Hay that David began to understand that perfection was blocking his creative expression. He learned to ask himself, does this need to be perfect or does it need to be real? And gradually, David began sharing his work, imperfections and all. And you know what happened? People connected deeply with his art precisely because it was authentic, human, real. Letting go of perfection doesn't mean accepting mediocrity or stopping trying. It means doing your best with love, not with fear. It means understanding that mistakes are part of the learning process, that imperfections are what make us unique and interesting. Louise Hay invites us to replace self-criticism with self-compassion, to treat ourselves with the same kindness we offer someone we love. When you make a mistake, instead of punishing yourself, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow? I allow myself to be human, to learn and grow with love and patience. This shift in perspective transforms everything, because you stop being your own enemy and become your best ally. The freedom that comes from letting go of perfection is indescribable. Suddenly, you allow yourself to try new things without fear of failing. You allow yourself to be seen, even when you're not having your best day. You allow yourself to live, instead of just existing in a constant state of self-criticism and dissatisfaction. Louise Hay reminds us that we are beings in constant evolution, and that each step, even the imperfect ones, brings us closer to who we truly are. When you release the need to be perfect, you discover something much more powerful, the beauty of being authentic. And this authenticity is nourished by something that can completely transform how you see yourself. Words that transform the words you say to yourself have immense power. They shape your reality, influence your emotions, and create the world you live in. Louise Hay dedicated her life to teaching us about the transformative power of positive affirmations. Affirmations are conscious, intentional declarations that we plant in our mind, like seeds in fertile soil. When you repeat an affirmation with feeling and conviction, you're reprogramming old, limiting beliefs, replacing them with loving, empowering truths. I am worthy of all the love, joy, and abundance life has to offer. This isn't just a pretty phrase, it's a powerful tool for healing and transformation that can completely change the trajectory of your life. Many people try affirmations once or twice and give up because they don't see immediate results. But Louise Hay teaches us that affirmations work like any practice. They require consistency, patience, and faith. Think about how many years you spent repeating negative thoughts about yourself. Decades, perhaps. Those thoughts created deep grooves in your mind, automatic pathways your brain travels without even thinking. Affirmations create new pathways, but that takes time. Each time you repeat a positive affirmation, you're strengthening that new pathway, making it easier to access. Over time, these loving thoughts become as automatic as the critical ones used to be. I choose thoughts that nourish and uplift me. Let me tell you about Rachel, a woman who struggled with low self-esteem her whole life. She would look in the mirror and only see flaws, only hear that cruel inner voice saying she wasn't pretty, smart, or valuable enough. Rachel discovered Louise Hay at a moment of deep despair and decided to try affirmations, even without really believing they would work. She started simple, saying every morning, "I love and approve of myself." At first, the words felt empty, even false, but Rachel persisted. Weeks passed, and something began to change. The critical voice was still there, but now there was another voice, gentler, more loving. Over time, that gentle voice grew stronger, and Rachel began to see herself with new eyes. Today, she says affirmations saved her life, that they taught her to be her own best friend. Louise Hay teaches us that affirmations are most powerful when combined with emotion and visualization. It's not enough to just repeat the words mechanically. You need to feel the truth of them in your heart. When you say, "I deserve love and happiness," close your eyes and imagine what your life would be like if you truly believed that. How would you feel? How would you act? What choices would you make? Allow yourself to feel that reality, even if just for a few moments. This combination of words, emotion, and imagination is extremely powerful, because you're sending a clear message to the universe about what you want to create in your life. I trust the process of life and know that everything is unfolding perfectly for me. Affirmations are also a form of self-forgiveness in action. When you consciously choose to speak loving words to yourself, you're undoing years of self-criticism and judgment. You're telling your heart that it deserves kindness, that it deserves to be treated with respect and care. Louise Hay invites us to make affirmations a daily practice, a sacred ritual of self-love. You can say them in the morning when you wake up, at night before sleeping, or whenever you notice you're falling into negative thought patterns. Over time, you'll notice that your life begins to reflect these new beliefs, that opportunities appear, that relationships improve, that you feel lighter and freer. And this freedom allows you to look at something we often neglect. Freedom through release. Forgiving someone who hurt you can seem impossible, especially when the pain is still fresh, when the wound still bleeds. But Louise Hay teaches us something profound and liberating. Forgiving others isn't about them, it's about you. When you refuse to forgive, who continues to suffer? It's not the person who hurt you, it's you. Resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It corrodes you from the inside, steals your peace, your joy, your vital energy. Louise Hay used to say that holding on to resentment is one of the most destructive forms of self-punishment, because you're allowing someone from your past to continue controlling your present. I release all resentment and choose peace in my heart. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting what happened or saying it's okay. It doesn't mean you need to have a relationship with that person again or trust them. Forgiving simply means releasing the emotional charge you're carrying, freeing the energy that's trapped in that hurt. It's an act of self-love, a conscious decision not to allow the past to continue poisoning your present. Louise Hay invites us to see forgiveness as a gift we give ourselves, not to the other person. When you forgive, you're saying, "I deserve peace. I deserve to move forward. I deserve to be free. I forgive and release myself," allowing love to flow freely in my life. Meet the story of James, a man who carried for years the anger of having been betrayed by his best friend in a business deal. James lost money, his reputation was shaken, and he felt deeply betrayed. He fed that resentment, replaying the story in his mind repeatedly, imagining confrontations, wishing for revenge. But who was suffering? It wasn't the friend who had moved on with his life. It was James, who was trapped in a cycle of anger and bitterness. When James discovered Louise Hay's teachings, he resisted the idea of forgiving. It seemed unfair. It seemed like he was letting the other person get away with it. But gradually, James understood that forgiving wasn't about justice, it was about freedom. He began to work on forgiveness, not because his friend deserved it, but because he, James, deserved peace. And when he finally managed to let go, it was as if an immense weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Louise Hay teaches us that often, when we look more deeply at the people who hurt us, we can see that they too were suffering, that they too were acting from their own wounds and limitations. This doesn't justify what they did, but it helps us humanize them, to see that they're not monsters, they're just imperfect human beings, just like us. When you can see the humanity in the person who hurt you, forgiveness becomes easier. You realize that holding on to anger is like being chained to that person, and forgiving is cutting that chain and finally being free. I see the humanity in everyone and choose compassion over judgment. Forgiveness is a process, not a single event. You may need to forgive the same person many times whenever the hurt resurfaces, and that's okay. Louise Hay reminds us that healing isn't linear, that there will be days when you feel free and days when the pain returns. But each time you choose forgiveness, you're strengthening your compassion muscle. You're becoming stronger, more resilient, more free. And the most beautiful thing is that when you forgive others, you're also learning to forgive yourself. Because if you can have compassion for someone who hurt you, you can certainly have compassion for yourself, for your own mistakes and imperfections. And this compassion is what finally opens the doors to something extraordinary. Your hidden power within you exists limitless potential, a creative and powerful force that's waiting to be released. But for years, perhaps decades, this potential has been dormant, suffocated by limiting beliefs, self-criticism, and fear. Louise Hay teaches us that when we truly forgive ourselves, when we release the weight of the past and embrace self-love, something magical happens. We begin to awaken to who we truly are. You are not your failures, your mistakes, or your perceived limitations. You are an infinite being, capable of creating, transforming, manifesting the life of your dreams. I recognize and embrace my limitless potential, knowing I can create the life I desire. This is the truth about you, and self-forgiveness is the key that unlocks this truth. When you live trapped in guilt and self-criticism, your energy is constantly directed toward the past, toward what went wrong, toward what you should have done differently. But when you forgive yourself, that energy is released and can be redirected to the present and the future. Suddenly, you have energy to dream again, to create, to take risks. Louise Hay used to say that self-forgiveness is like removing the chains that kept you trapped. And once free, you can finally run toward your dreams. You can finally ask yourself, what do I really want? Who am I really? What is my heart calling me to do? I trust my inner wisdom and follow my heart with courage and love. Think about Maria, a woman who spent most of her life believing she wasn't creative. In school, a teacher had said she had no talent for art, and Maria internalized that belief. She followed a practical, safe career, but always felt something was missing. When Maria began working on self-forgiveness, she realized she was carrying not only guilt for her own choices, but also the limitations others had placed on her. She began to ask herself, what if that teacher was wrong? What if I really do have creativity within me? Maria began to experiment, to paint, to write, without judgment, just for pleasure. And she discovered a whole world of potential that had been dormant. Today, Maria sells her paintings and says she finally feels alive, finally feels like herself. Louise Hay teaches us that our potential has no limits, except those we place on ourselves. When you believe you're not good enough, that you don't deserve success, that you're not capable, you're creating those limitations. But when you forgive yourself and begin to truly love yourself, those beliefs begin to dissolve. You realize you were always capable, always deserving, always had everything you needed within you. The universe is conspiring in your favor, waiting for you to align with your true essence so you can receive all the blessings that are destined for you. I am aligned with my highest purpose and allow my light to shine brightly, awakening your limitless. Potential isn't about becoming someone different. It's about removing the layers of conditioning, fear, and self-criticism that were hiding who you always were. It's like cleaning the dust off a diamond, revealing its natural brilliance. Louise Hay invites us to do this cleaning with love, with patience, with compassion. And as you forgive yourself, as you love yourself, you begin to see possibilities that were previously invisible. You begin to attract opportunities, people, and experiences that are aligned with your true self. You begin to live, not from fear, but from love. And this is the life you always deserved, the life that's waiting for you. And now, with all this love and this new energy, you're ready for something even deeper. And you know what's even more incredible? In just a moment, I'm going to guide you through a practical, transformative exercise that will help you integrate everything we've learned so far. It's an experience that will touch your heart in a very special way. So stay with me until the end, because you won't want to miss this. A new story begins. Your story isn't over. Each day is a new blank page, a new opportunity to write a different chapter, more loving, more authentic. Louise Hay teaches us that we are not prisoners of our past, that we can, at any moment, choose to rewrite the narrative of our life. Perhaps until now, your story has been marked by pain, guilt, self-criticism, and limitations. But what if you could pick up the pen and begin writing a story of self-love, forgiveness, healing, and infinite possibilities? You can, and it all begins with the conscious decision to forgive and love yourself unconditionally. I am the author of my life, and I choose to write a story of love, joy, and fulfillment. Rewriting your story doesn't mean denying what happened or pretending the pain didn't exist. It means changing how you interpret those experiences, the meaning you give them. Louise Hay used to say we can transform our wounds into wisdom, our mistakes into lessons, our pain into compassion. When you look at your past through the eyes of love, instead of the eyes of judgment, everything changes. You realize that each experience, even the most painful ones, brought you here, taught you something valuable, made you stronger and more compassionate. I honor my journey and am grateful for all the lessons that brought me here. Meet the story of Sophie, a woman who spent years defining herself by her failures. She had gone through a difficult divorce, lost a job she loved, and felt like her life was a series of mistakes and disappointments. Sophie saw herself as a victim of circumstances, someone to whom life had been unfair. But when she discovered Louise Hay, something began to change. Sophie began to ask herself, what if these experiences weren't failures, but what if life was guiding me towards something better? She began to rewrite her story, not by changing the facts, but by changing the narrative. The divorce was no longer a failure, was liberation from a relationship that didn't serve her. The job loss was no longer a rejection, it was an opportunity to discover her true passion. Sophie realized she always had the power to choose how to tell her story, and that realization changed everything. Louise Hay teaches us that the words we use to describe our life have immense power. If you keep saying "I always fail," nothing works out for me, I'm not good enough. You're reinforcing that narrative and creating more of the same. But when you begin to say, I am learning and growing, each challenge makes me stronger. I am capable and deserving of good things. You're rewriting your story in real time. You're creating a new reality, a reality based on love, not fear. I choose words that empower me and create the life I want to live. Rewriting your story with love also means forgiving all the characters in that story, including yourself. It means looking at the people who hurt you and understanding they too were doing the best they could. It means looking at your own choices and actions with compassion, recognizing you too were doing the best you could with what you knew at the time. Louise Hay invites us to release judgment and embrace acceptance, to release resentment and embrace forgiveness. And when you do this, when you truly let go, you become free to create a completely new future. A future where you are the heroine of your own story, where you live with purpose, passion, and love. This is the life that's waiting for you, and all you need to do is choose to write it. And now, let's put all of this into practice in a very special way. Your sacred practice, now that you've absorbed all this wisdom and love, it's time to put it into practice. I'm going to guide you through a very special journaling exercise, inspired by Louise Hay's teachings, that will help you integrate everything we've learned and begin your self-forgiveness journey in a concrete, transformative way. Get a notebook or journal, something that's just yours, a sacred space for your thoughts and feelings. Find a quiet place where you won't be interrupted. Light a candle if you want to create a more welcoming environment, and take a few deep breaths. Place your hand on your heart and feel your breath. You're creating a sacred moment of connection with yourself. Now, open your notebook and write at the top of the page, "Forgiveness letter to myself." This is a letter you're going to write to yourself, as if you were writing to someone you love deeply. Begin the letter with "Dear," your name, and let the words flow from your heart. Don't worry about grammar or structure, just write what comes in your letter. Include these reflections. First, acknowledge something specific you need to forgive yourself for. Be honest and vulnerable. Then, write about why you did what you did in that moment, with compassion and understanding. Remember that you were doing the best you could with the resources you had. Next, tell yourself that you forgive yourself, using loving and kind words. You might write something like, "I forgive you completely. You are human, and it's okay to make mistakes. I love you exactly as you are." Then, write 3 positive affirmations you want to incorporate into your life moving forward. Start each one with "I am" or "I deserve." For example, "I am worthy of love and happiness. I deserve peace and freedom. I am capable of creating the life of my dreams." Finish your letter with a promise to yourself, a commitment to treat yourself with more love and compassion from now on. When you finish writing, read the letter out loud to yourself, looking in the mirror, if possible. Let the tears come if they want to. Allow yourself to feel the emotion, the release, the relief. This letter is a gift you're giving yourself, a milestone on your path of healing and transformation. Keep this letter in a special place, and whenever you feel trapped in self-criticism or guilt, come back and read it again. Remember the love and compassion you have for yourself. And if you feel the urge, write new letters whenever you need to forgive something new or reinforce yourself. This is an exercise you can do as many times as you want, and each time will be a new layer of healing. Louise Hay taught us that healing happens when we treat ourselves with the same love we offer others. This journaling exercise is a concrete way to practice that love, to make self-forgiveness real and tangible. So pick up your pen, open your heart, and begin writing your new story, a story of love, forgiveness, and infinite possibilities. Your journey starts now. You've taken such a beautiful and courageous step today by opening your heart to the power of self-forgiveness. Everything we've explored together, from releasing self-criticism to embracing your limitless potential, is now a part of you. Louise Hay always reminded us that change begins the moment we decide to love ourselves, and you've made that decision today. So I invite you to take everything you've learned and apply it with gentleness and patience. Be kind to yourself as you walk this path, knowing that every small step is a victory, every moment of self-compassion is a triumph. You are worthy of the life you dream of, and self-forgiveness is the key that opens that door. Trust the process, trust yourself, and know that you are never alone on this journey. Your transformation has already begun, and I'm so honored to have been a part of it.